What's up, traders? Matt from the Trade Brigade here with your weekend crypto report, where as always, I do a technical analysis and give you my thoughts on the coins listed up above, and we'll also check in on Shiba towards the end of the video. I think there's a decent setup there. In terms of Bitcoin, obviously the news is new all-time high, as well as if we come on over to this ticker, BITO, it's the Bitcoin Futures ETF. I mean, obviously not faring so well considering that Bitcoin is pulling back now, but that leaves the possibility open for options now on the exchanges, okay? So not necessarily trading Bitcoin, but rather its derivatives through the options on BITO, okay? So all of this stuff is fairly interesting. We're going to start on the Bitcoin daily chart and just talk about nuance. I mean, obviously, again, we did make that new all-time high up here. If we scroll back, what you'll notice is that this pullback is, of course, violating the support trend line. It was fairly steep, so we didn't expect it to hold forever, but we're coming into a known area of support, so we'll see if that holds over the weekend. Let's drill down to the 4-hour time frame and just kind of see how this is unfolding. Let's get rid of the support trend line, and I would venture to point out that this is starting to become a little bit of head and shoulders-ish. It's not the most clean thing in the world, so I would really kind of be patient, see if we get a bounce, and then if we really fail to make a higher high here, that to me would be the cleaner head and shoulders to pay attention to, with your neckline being here at the 59,800-ish mark. So just a longer term thought here. I just wanted to bring it up because, of course, you know, that's what I'm thinking about. That's what I'm seeing. In terms of if we will support here or not, it's sort of yet to be seen. I mean, this candle certainly did look like we wanted to support there. It was a hammer candle, obviously, off of a known area of support. However, it's not like we took out the high of that candle and then continued back up to sort of resume the overwhelming daily uptrend, right? So for now, it's kind of a wait and see here on Bitcoin to see as to how that 59,800-ish level resolves. To the upside, obviously, the target is here, 64K. And then after that, let's go ahead and throw on. Let's grab this pane. There we go. Let's sort of throw on here the new all-time high up there at 66,850. We'll call it, you know, if you like nice round numbers, just call it 67K per coin. That would, of course, be the upside target on any sort of major bounce. Blue sky levels after that. To the downside, on the break of this critical area of support, the next level underneath to pay attention to is 57,888. Underneath that, again, you can just sort of walk these levels down. The real critical one to hold, if all of these kind of go in the upcoming week, has to be here at 53,100, we'll call it for round numbers sake. If we go back to the daily time frame chart, you can see where this is coming from. Certainly this pivot right here, then turns support right here. And if we look left, also support from in the historical period of consolidation here as we were making those new highs back then. So to me, that's the must hold area if this is going to pull back aggressively over the course of the next week, give or take. Okay, so let's move over to Litecoin now. Obviously not as much relative strength here, nowhere near the highs. Let's drill down to the 4-hour. What you'll notice is that we are pulling back into the support trend line, which is still intact, and a known area of prior resistance, which should start to offer support. So to me, this is actually looking quite tempting for a risk-friendly long, right? If we can start coming into here and printing things that look like hammer candles, indecision dojis, basically things that make us question, right? Is this pullback here ending? Can we flip long over these highs and then retest the high here? I mean, this is a perfect place for that to happen. We have tight risk, right? Our stop goes here underneath this zone of support, basically, and our target is back here towards these highs. Even if you played it for half, right? Just basically this little dead cat bounce area. Let's throw a level on that just to be aware. You would be looking for about 201 from, let's just call this 190-ish for round numbers sake. So to me, starting to become a bit of a nice setup here inside of Litecoin if you like the pullback buy. So I like that. If it blows through all of this support and you stop out, obviously targets underneath are 175 the whole dollar, and then after that, really focusing on that 163 as the next number to pay attention to. We'll come on over to Ethereum up next, back out to the daily here, just to see where we are in terms of the recent highs. And, you know, right there, but of course not a new all-time high like we saw in Bitcoin, still pulling back a little bit. I think this setup is rather interesting based on the fact that, again, Bitcoin made a new high, and if we do something like this, pull back for a quick higher low and then retest, what does that potentially set up, right? A big breakout there into blue sky territories. Who knows? Maybe it goes to $5,000 per coin. Just sort of an idea that I have. $5,000 would make a nice psychological target, right? And maybe if we get the quick higher low pullback, that could potentially set up. So a longer term thought there inside of Ethereum, if it wants to give us a shallow pullback. Let's take a look at the 4-hour just to see some more nuance here. So obviously, just like everything pulling back, this one too is starting to come into a known area of support, which is fairly interesting. I would venture to say that this area is not so important support. And let's clean up this chart just a little bit here. So again, pulling back into the support trend line, it looks like we're starting to form hammers early. Is it going to bounce here? And if so, if we can recapture 4,000, give or take, just nice round number here, then what you're looking for is the rotation higher into 42 and then 43.75, we'll call it, this most recent pivot high right around here. So I like this just as well as sort of Litecoin, and noting that Ethereum has some relative strength, again, being closer to the highs than Litecoin per se, this might make the better trade here inside of these smaller coins, not necessarily the big BTC. Okay, so liking the setup here in Ethereum. To the downside, obviously, if it goes, really focusing on this number here, that's 36.50, we'll call it. Not so worried about this one anymore. Let's go ahead and get rid of that, clean this chart up a little bit here. And again, that would just simply be filling up the triangle, right? A break of the support trend line puts into play, boom, something like this, paying attention to, again, that 36.50. Let's continue on with Cardano here. So ADA, I'm not going to bother going back out to the daily. I will just scrunch this chart up so you can see where we are relative to the high, though. And what you'll notice is that we're just going sideways through the symmetrical triangle. Looks like we could have started to get a little bit of lift here, but I mean, obviously that collapsed back apart. So it's really not any longer about the support or resistance trend line here. It's just kind of, going sideways in a channel. Instead of compressing further, we're just getting further range, right? So we're still range bound. So to me, it's all about which side of the box are we going to poke up and out of? Is it going to be here to get into the next overhead resistance, or is it going to be down lower to get into supports underneath? So really not seeing a trade here inside of Cardano. If you are someone who likes to speculate, then maybe you start picking up longs down here, expecting that we rotate higher given the strength of the crypto market as a whole. But your stop has to be here, because if we go lower, you're looking at about 188. To the upside, if you do take the move from the low end of the range, let's just call it this 110 to kind of split the difference here. If you take 110, the target would have to be here. I wouldn't really try to aim all the way for the highs here, just because you can see we've started to get a little bit of rejection early the past two times we've attempted it, right? So here, and that's really bringing into play the 2.284, okay? So that's what I would watch out for here, really more range bound inside of Cardano. I like the pullback setups better in Ethereum as well as Litecoin as of right now. To the upside, obviously a break up and out of this range puts into play the 2.451, all right? Next up, we have the joke coin, the good old Doge. Let's go back out to the daily just so we can kind of see here. Again, nowhere near the highs. Let's go back down to the 4 hour to talk a little bit more nuance, just sort of channeling more like Cardano, to be quite honest with you, and just going sideways in this overall range right here. You can see that we have highs respected here and lows as well here, and currently just kind of coming back down towards the bottom end of the range. Again, we have tested this support trend line now a number of times. The more times you test something in short proximity of time, so if this wants to come down and do something like this, not really looking for that to hold on something like a fourth touch, right, in very close proximity of time. So a breakdown of that support trend line brings into play the 0.2269, anything underneath, down to about 0.2192, okay? So all things considered, Doge not really looking like the most attractive option. If it does want to break out, the only sort of level I could see breaking would be this 26.25. And if we scrunch up the chart, you can see that's where things start to get a little interesting, right? Because look at the range overhead, much more meat on the bone there, as opposed to trying to like take these small little trades in here, looking for small incremental gains. So if you are going to look for a breakout, if anything, watch for the 0.2625 inside of Dogecoin. Next up, we'll go on over to the Ripple and just quickly out to the daily to see where those all-time highs are. Obviously nowhere near them right now, just kind of going sideways in this overall range. Back down to the 4 hour to talk a little bit more nuance. Obviously our support trend line has broken. We will get rid of that. And now the main thing to discuss is, of course, this kind of resistance trend line. We have equal lows here. I would venture to say that this can be adjusted lower based on the more recent interactions. You can certainly see support, and coming into it right now. If this breaks down here at the 1.07, we'll call it for round numbers sake, then I mean there is some substantial room to fall in terms of percentage points, about 6 cents lower there. So again, not really something that I would want to be wrapped up into the long side. Technically, this is a descending triangle, right? A bearish pattern here. So we'll see if that resolves lower, or if it doesn't, obviously the target is here at the resistance trend line. We will also have, depending on when this goes on, we will have the horizontal level at the 0.1460 level as well, acting as overhead resistance. So be skeptical here. The real break, in my estimation, would be if we can firmly cross the resistance trend line on big volume, on good momentum, then fine. There is potential we rotate higher into the 1.24, but as of right now, this still has to be a bearish pattern, right? These flat lows are threatening to act as a flush point and lead to lower here inside of Ripple. Next up, we'll take a look at Stellar, going back out to the daily just to get a sense of where the highs are. Again, obviously nowhere near them, but in terms of this overall range, notice what we're doing here, consolidating in certainly the upper half, if not upper upper third, I would argue, inside of Stellar. So that's a good sign of strength there. We'll go down to the 4-hour, talk a little bit more nuance. I can't ignore, what did we just talk about in Ripple? If I clean up that support trend line, get rid of that, and really focus in on this now, I mean, it's still kind of just the same. It's a descending triangle, right? If I do something like this, there's your resistance portion, there's your flat lows. So if it does break, again, threatening lower here inside of Stellar, you're looking at 35.32. Anything underneath really opens up the door for a larger fall down to about 0.3232. So be careful around this area. I would not be fishing for longs at this point in time. I would really wait, again, noting that where we are from that daily perspective up against the top end of this overall range right here, I would kind of be patient inside of Stellar and see if we can get the break up and over that 40-cent mark to then unlock the door for higher. If we scrunch the chart up, we know the next major area to pay attention to is really from back in here. Let's just call that 45 cents. Okay, so that's really the trade I would watch for inside of Stellar. Not so much these sort of, again, very incremental little trying to buy the low here, looking for this and then this. No, just be patient. Let the trade come to you. And if we want to take this out on good volume, good momentum, we know where the target is up above. So that's my thoughts there inside of Stellar. And lastly, as promised, we will take a look at SHIB for ShibaInu USD here from the Coinbase exchange. And of course, this is going to be the 4-hour time frame chart. We did break the resistance trend line, but sideways through time. So it's not incredibly bullish. However, I do think that the consolidation that's happening here is more bullish than bearish. I mean, look at how this is forming high and tight in this overall range right here. It's in the 50% or greater mark. So to me, this is starting to form a pressure cooker top at the 29.43. If that breaks, obviously we know the target is back up there towards the highs, and that would be, fantastic for a momentum play. If big volume wants to come in, if big momentum wants to come in, if it happens really fast, that of course is going to be a good sign that there will likely be some form of continuation after the first initial break. I'm not entirely sure if this is going to work, but I do want to try to at least find a support trend line. There we go. So again, not the cleanest thing in the world. However, we get anchor, touch number 1, 2, kind of riding it in here, and now getting into it again sideways through time. So it's not like we're pulling back aggressively into it, but just something to watch out for here. So that's going to wrap up the entire crypto weekly watch list. If you enjoyed the video today or learned anything new, let me know in the comments section or by giving the video a thumbs up. Don't forget our secondary channel is linked in the description. We do a couple of analyses per day there on that channel. Sometimes they are cryptos. And don't forget also that the weekly watch list will be coming out on Sunday as planned. I wish you all a green trading week.